We're a military state. China is making it very clear they're at war with America. And the Biden administration is making it very clear that he has no clue that that's what they're trying to do.
2024 presidential candidate Nikki Haley there, not impressed with the Secretary of State Antony Blinken's trip to China this week. She's not alone. The secretary met with China's President Xi last minute, and other top officials, they said thanks but no thanks to Blinken's big ask: secure military-to-military communications. Yeah, they're not even taking our calls up until this point. Some brutal op-ed headlines. China demands assurances on Taiwan. Blinken complies immediately. Blinken bends to knee to Xi in Beijing visit. Biden's policy on China is now outright appeasement. Ouch. One journalist tweeted this blunt breakdown: Blinken canceled his original trip to China. China does nothing. Blinken still ends up going. China berates Blinken. The U.S. leaves looking weak, having accomplished nothing. President Biden, however, told reporters Secretary Blinken did, quote, a hell of a job. His press secretary echoed that.
I think it is a good step forward. We believe it's a good step forward for Secretary to have a constructive conversation with President Xi.
Republican Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa, member of the Armed Services and Agricultural Committees. Well, there's been a lot of response to Blinken's trip. What is yours?
Number one, Harris, weak. And number two, this is appeasement. And we have seen this with this administration time and time again. We see an ever increasingly aggressive China. And yet, what does the United States do about it? Absolutely nothing. We have seen a spy balloon traverse the United States with no response. We see a spy base in Cuba, 90 miles from our shore. We see China purchasing ag land around one of our air bases in North Dakota. What does the government do? Absolutely nothing under this weak American leadership.
Well,
we are the laughingstock around the world.
But they did do some things. They gave stuff away. I mean, they wiped away sanctions, according to Representative McCall, who was here with me yesterday, for human rights violations. I mean, that sounds like a bad plot in a D-list movie. That's not even based on any kind of fact that should ever happen. They're torturing people.
Oh, absolutely, Harris. And we have seen this with our reliance upon materials that come from China that are under the control of China, especially if we look at this administration's push to electric vehicles. We know that so many of the materials used in that, it comes from child and slave labor out of China and out of the areas under Chinese control and authority. And yet, what do we continue to do? We continue to appease and allow them to move forward with actions like that. Things that we find morally reprehensible here in the United States. It's okay, China, go ahead. That's President Biden's message to the Chinese.
Wow. Secretary Blinken said this when he was asked about the spy craft that you just mentioned, about that whole incident that torpedoed his China trip in the first place.
We did what we needed to do to protect our interests. We said what we needed to say and made clear what we needed to make clear in terms of this not happening again. And so as long as it doesn't, that chapter should be closed.
Okay, we got to get him some satellite television when he's on the road, because the president said that China's just embarrassed, and oh my goodness.
Oh, those poor Chinese. I know, they got caught doing a dastardly deed. This goes back to weak leadership coming out of the White House and within this administration. China is our pacing threat. They are our number one adversary. This administration needs to wake up to that. We see it here in Congress. Democrats and Republicans come together to say that China is our number one threat. I don't think that the big White House down the street has gotten that message yet. We are pulling together as Democrats and Republicans, but Joe Biden just is not feeling that pressure. They will continue to appease, and this is why exactly we need a change in administration.
I want to quickly hit some of the points that you made on a growing list of China's attempts to keep tabs on our nation. We're learning of plans for a joint military training facility in Cuba, less than 100 miles from Florida's coast. Remember, first we were told that didn't exist. Now it does. Right. Also, the recently confirmed China spying sites in Cuba, which date back to 2019. Also told those didn't exist. Now we know they do. Not to mention spy balloons, as you mentioned, secret police stations here, giant cranes at ports on both coasts, TikTok, and farmland purchases. Senator, you and the rest of the Ag Committee, in fact, are diving into that last one.
Yes, we absolutely are, Harris. And today I have introduced legislation that is co-sponsored by our chairwoman of the Agriculture Committee, Debbie Stabenow, Democrat from Michigan. We have come together on a bill which would overhaul the way we take a look at foreign investment and purchases of American ag land. It is extremely important that we know who is purchasing our farmland because, as we all know, food security is national security. And we've seen a lot of foreign investment. We have over 37 million acres today here in the United States that have foreign ownership. We also know that we have seen the number of acres owned by foreign investors here in the United States. It has doubled in the last decade. We really have to get control of this situation before we sell out our own farmers here in the United States of America to our adversaries like China.
I've been interviewing some of those farmers over the last few weeks, and there's also a layering concern of this gives China a way in to hurt us through our food chain.
Absolutely.
I mean,
absolutely.
It just sets up all sorts of things. Senator Joni Ernst from the great state of Iowa, thank you very much for being in
Thank you, Harris.
Hey, it's Will Kane. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Kane podcast for full episodes right now.